How hardworking is Max?
Max will do absolutely anything required to win.
Right.
So in terms of the hard work, it's sort of limitless. He will do whatever it takes. You know, he's made that absolutely clear. Whether it's about learning or understanding or time focusing on himself and his mental state, like Max will do whatever it takes.
The brutal reality of being Max Verstappen's teammate. Check this video out to see why it's a mental battle as much as a physical one.
It's limitless in that it doesn't matter what's asked of him, he will find a way and he will work towards making it happen. I think, you look at the drivers and we'll take the piss and we'll say, flies in on a Thursday, flies out Sunday night.
Nice private jet,
Yeah, that's fine, but all that other time, Max is in the sim or he's training, he's working on himself, he's focusing on his mental sort of state and preparation. So it's all hard work. It's different to what we're doing, but it's still work. Like for us, we very much look at work as the physical labor. Like a race weekend for us now, it's over 70 hours on your feet. Even with the curfew periods and a bit of traveling, it's 70 hours pretty much in a race weekend. So it's for us, it's physical labor. For other people, it's just different kinds of work.
People underestimate how much effort goes into being at the top. Max isn't just showing up to drive. His preparation is relentless. From perfecting braking points in the sim to maintaining peak fitness, he leaves nothing to chance. That's why he performs under pressure, adapts in changing conditions, and always finds an extra tenth when it matters. It's not just natural ability, it's the hours of dedication that make him unstoppable.
And what sort of work that people don't see would he get up to after a session, after qualifying, before the race?
I mean, I think the thing that Max dislikes the most will be all the media requirements. Like Max, I hear him. Max would quite happily just arrive, get in the car, do his job.
You know
race.
why, though, don't you? Doesn't make the car go faster.
Well, this is it, It's about prioritising what you need to win and what you don't need to win. I guess those are probably the things that frustrate him the most.
Max's mindset is clear. If it doesn't help him win, it's not a priority. That's why you'll often see him cut through media obligations quickly and head straight back to the garage. He's reviewing data, discussing strategies with his engineers, and mentally preparing for the next session. Every decision he makes is about being the fastest on track, nothing else.
But I get that. And look, you've worked with some incredible drivers over many years in F1. What have you learned about the mindset that makes a champion?
I think more than anything, it's resilience.
Yeah.
I think what we've seen, certainly with Max's teammates over the years, is I think what they struggle with is how resilient Max is. Like you can have a bad weekend where the car's not great, Max will drag something out of it. And I think for a lot of the drivers that have sort of sat alongside him in the garage, it's really hard to see. It's really hard to sort of suck up, and you might go out and put a great lap in and you think, God, I've dragged the most out of that car, and then Max will find a 2/10 on you. And I think mentally it really takes its toll on people around him, through no fault of Max's. Yeah. He's just there to go the quickest. But it's a tough one for people to swallow sometimes, I think.
I can't imagine what it must be like, actually, to have your performance compared directly with someone like that. Whether you're Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon's been on this show, he's spoken about he basically said, it became so difficult that I then had to drive the car harder. By driving the car harder, I make more mistakes. By making more mistakes, I feel more pressure, so I drive the car harder. Yeah. And I guess you've seen drivers just get themselves into their own headspace and a real muddle.
It becomes like a real vicious cycle. Like you said, you overdrive the car, you're not going to go quicker. You're probably going to go slower, and you're going to make mistakes, and then those mistakes put more scrutiny on you. And it's really tough. And I think, Checo's vast experience, I think that he was probably the best person to try to keep up with Max.
Yeah.
In that I didn't think that, in the way that Max got into other people's heads, I didn't think it would affect Checo. I think it's taken a long time until it has. But Checo, again, I think he's very resilient, and I appreciate that.
This is the difference between Max and so many of his teammates. He never lets a setback define him. If the car isn't great, he adapts. If a session doesn't go his way, he resets. That kind of resilience wears down the people around him because they know there's no room for error. Even experienced drivers like Checo, who's been in F1 for over a decade, eventually start feeling the pressure.
Checo is such an interesting conversation because you sort of think if you've coped with Max for 3 or 4 seasons, you've become immune to his brilliance, and then I think that's probably changed now.
Well, I think one of the things I feel like with Checo is that you feel sometimes that he does have certainly when you're in Mexico, you do feel like he's got the weight of a country on his shoulders. You know, like we were out in Mexico this year and we were talking to some people and they were saying to us that, like in my mind, it would always have been like their footballers and things like that would have been their biggest athletes. It's quite clear when you're in Mexico City, their biggest celebrity, their biggest athlete is Checo. You know, he is Checo's like God in Mexico. Like honestly, like his billboards are everywhere. Like it must be such a huge pressure for him. And like you said, he was resilient. And when Checo first came in and he was sort of finding his way into the team and putting himself in that position, I think that he did a great job of that and sort of not bowing to the pressure, not letting it get in his head. But I think there comes a point where you're like, look, I'm in a position where this car can win world championships and I want to win a world championship. And obviously that's a huge weight when the whole of Mexico wants you to do that as well.
Checo's resilience has been remarkable, but there's only so much pressure a driver can take before it starts affecting performance. Early on, he managed it well, focusing on doing his job without letting outside noise get to him. But as soon as he got close to fighting for a championship, the weight of expectations from both Red Bull and Mexico started to build. That's a tough situation for any driver, no matter how experienced.
The problem is that you're up against a guy that is very, very hard to beat.
So on a day when you give it your best, it's still not enough. That's the killer.
And that's the killer, you know. Once you've got it in your head that I can win a world championship, but actually the guy next to you is not going to allow that because he is going to find more time than you, it's going to get to you eventually. I think one of the things that Max has never been worried about is anyone going faster than him. I think that's something that he knows how skilled he is, and it's sort of a bit of a luxury for him in that he knows if you can find that lap time, he can find a bit more. And I think that's something that he's sort of used to his advantage. And like I said, like he's such a nice guy, Max. Like you can always just have a really normal conversation. He doesn't do PR. He doesn't do any of this. There's no sort of posturing. It's just him, and he's just going to go and drive. And I think, again, it's one of those things that you look at, how is this guy so calm? Yeah. How's this guy so calm in these situations, and how's he dragging it out and getting all of these bits of out of it each weekend? And I'm here and I'm giving everything, and it's, and it's just not working out. And I think, after a while, that it's gonna really affect you.
Being in the garage next to Max isn't just tough, it's relentless. He doesn't play mind games, doesn't rely on PR, and doesn't get caught up in drama. He just drives, and drives faster than anyone else. Over time, that takes a toll on his teammates, because no matter how much they push, Max always has another level to unlock.
Please have this conversation about the nice guy that Max is. I've had very limited contact with him.
Yeah.
Every time I have, funny, welcoming. Yeah. Like, when you say the word normal, but you don't mean it as a criticism, you mean it in the best possible way. Because there are many people in F1 that we've met that are not normal, right, by the way.
Motorsport attracts odd people.
It does indeed. But he is normal. And I want the world to understand that. And, like I said earlier, I felt when I worked with Sebastian Vettel closely, the world didn't understand him. Yeah. What would you like people to know about Max?
Like, honestly, I totally agree with you. I think, I read people's comments on social media and it's just absolutely clear that they just don't get him. And that's sort of fine. And I think luckily for him, he's not worried about that.
Does he see them?
I'd say that he probably does, but if he does, I don't think it has any impact on him. Max is very clear on why he's there, what his job is, the task he's set for himself. But with us, honestly, I couldn't speak highly enough of him. Like I've never sort of idolized drivers and things like that or anything like that. And it's the same with Max, but he makes it easy because when we go out, he's just one of the boys. Like it's a very normal thing. You can talk to him about absolutely anything, his interests, his hobbies, stuff like that. There's no facade with him. He's the same bloke Monday through Sunday. Every day he's the same guy. You can be absolutely honest with him and he'll be absolutely honest with you. And for us, I think it's hard to maybe appreciate that when you don't have a personal relationship with him. Yeah. But I don't think there's anyone out there, like you said, I don't think there's anyone out there that spent like real time with Max and actually had real conversations with him that would tell you that he's some sort of, mean or whatever. Like that's just not him at all. Yeah. He's very much just a normal guy that wants to get on with a job. And I don't know, it's refreshing. I've always found it refreshing. I like his honesty. I know it can upset people and people expect like these sort of PR schooled answers from race drivers. I think we're very lucky to have a sort of honest voice in the paddock.
It's easy for fans to create an image of Max based on what they see on race weekends, but those who know him personally tell a very different story. He's relaxed, easygoing, and doesn't carry himself like a superstar. While others worry about PR and image, Max is just being Max, racing, competing, and keeping it simple. That level of authenticity is rare in F1, and it's part of what makes him such a compelling figure.
Well, what we ask for all the time is a real human.
Yeah.
Then when someone gives us a real human, we pick up on the flaws and the mistakes and criticize them for being a human. That's the problem, I think, with people in the public eye. And one of the criticisms he gets is for his wheel-to-wheel racing, which can be pretty punchy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What do you make of that?
Yeah, elbows out. We're here to race. You know, I think, like for me, I look at the past champions, and like you spoke about Seb, and at the time, I remember when Seb was winning, and he catch so much criticism for things that he did on track and whatever, and now we all look at Seb and we realise what kind of person he is, and our view of him's completely changed. I think that when somebody's winning and doing that good a job, it's a lot easier to decide you don't like them. You know, nobody's hating the guy that's in 18th, 19th place. You know, when you're winning, there's always going to be people that don't want to see you winning, and therefore they're going to pick up on that stuff.
Max races hard because he's a born competitor. He's not out there to make friends. He's there to win, and that means pushing himself and his rivals to the limit. Every great champion in F1 history has faced criticism for their aggression, but that's part of what separates the good from the truly elite. You don't dominate this sport by being passive.
I think my most vivid memory of Seb, right, was the multi-21 moment.
Of course.
For people that don't remember that, the drivers had an agreement, didn't they, that they would swap on track.
Yeah.
Seb refused to do it, won the race, went into the cool-down room afterwards, and you remember Mark Webber throwing the cap at him, saying, multi-21 Seb. And I found that hard at the time, because I was like, hold on, this is a guy that I really like, doing something that I really don't like.
Yeah.
But I think now on reflection, I probably look at it and think, well, that's why he won the world titles that he won.
This is it. I'd like the idea that you can go and compete at that level and win and not be ruthless when that's a fallacy. Like if you want to win at this level and be that good and compete, like these are all great race drivers. Yeah. If you want to beat them, you have to find something extra. And being ruthless is a necessity in that situation. And we've seen it from every champion that we've had in the sport. You know, Lewis in his first championship, he was ruthless when he needed to be, you know, throughout that year with Nico Rosberg. You know, ultimately Nico came out on top because, you know, he did what he had to do. It wasn't popular. There was tense moments in the garage because of it. But ultimately, that's what champions do. They do what they need to win. And I think that to sort of bash that and say, oh, well, you know, you could have been a bit kinder here and there. I mean, like, come on, man. We're here to win. I'm not here to make friends sometimes. You know, it's nice to have friends and for people to appreciate you. But ultimately, if you're not here to win and that sort of nice guy persona is more important to you, then you're not going to win.
Championships aren't won with handshakes and pleasantries. Every driver who's lifted that trophy has had to make controversial decisions at some point. Max is no different. He's here to dominate, not to make friends. And that's exactly why he's at the top of the sport.
And I think that the recent George Russell criticism at the back end of the 2024 season, it feels to me like that's the kind of thing that almost adds fuel to the fire for Max.
Yeah, I think, I'm very much the same as well, like in that criticism and people that want to sort of hate for whatever reason, it's like my super unleaded. Like, I'll just, you know, all you're going to do is spur me on to compete and win.
There's a reason Max is so mentally untouchable. When people criticize him, it doesn't unsettle him. It sharpens him. He's not looking for approval. He's looking for results. Russell's comments weren't the first and won't be the last, but instead of letting them become a distraction, Max just keeps proving why he's the benchmark. He's mastered the art of blocking out the noise and staying focused on the one thing that matters, being the fastest on track. And that's exactly why he's on top.